I'm traumatized.
The feel-good family fun hit of the holiday season.
Oh, why do we watch this at midnight?
That's all I do, Michael.
You and I pick different comfort movies.
We do. There you go. There you go.
Thank you.
So we just watched Possessor, directed by Brandon Cronenberg.
This was a fan request from somebody who I did not realize was as big as fantasy was until he threw like 5,000 requests.
Yeah,
It happened like one day. It's like, oh geez, okay.
It's good to know people value our opinions.
I'm grateful for that fact. Do not get me wrong. I'm not talking down, but at the same time, he caught me off guard.
No, it's good. It gave us a few good movies to think about. But with that in mind, I had seen this a couple of days ago, actually, and you had not, so I invited you over.
Not,
and we decided to watch Possessor.
I vouched heavily for Wolfwalker, but I was eventually vetoed.
It was more of a thing where I was like, I'm not in the mood for a light, fun cartoon. Later. But yeah, it was. I'm a fan of David Cronenberg, so it was interesting to know that his son also got into directing. I don't know if you've watched much Cronenberg.
I think I've watched one or two, but I'm not too familiar with his filmography.
The famous ones, like he directed The Fly, the Jeff Goldblum version, Dead Ringers, Videodrome, Scanners.
I haven't seen any of those.
Existenz, like a whole bunch of things, and he's known for his body horror and his weird sci-fi like trippiness and just the darkness of people like losing their minds and shit and not knowing what's real. And
don't say.
Well, but his son is following suit,
evidently.
And I'm really impressed. I'm pretty sure this is his debut feature.
You know the one that let me say right off the bat. I know I'm talking a lot of smack right now, but this is a really good movie.
Yeah. Okay.
Good. Like, any disturbing feelings I have is like it was made to be so.
Yeah.
So like I'm not like it's to the movie's credit. Oh, sorry. It is to the movie's credit. I'm like this viscerally disturbed.
Yeah, it's it does exactly what it sets out to do, and it does it very well.
It does. It is very effective.
It's deeply effective. It's also I really appreciate he has a style to him. Like there's a visual flair and a tone that's set throughout the movie.
It relies heavily on visual storytelling in a very it's not ethereal, but visceral kind of a way.
Visceral, kind of has like a surreal feeling.
Surreal, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, but it does hit some notes of like, you are supposed to kind of feel what's going on in certain places, and it's pretty blatant how it's put in front of you, but it doesn't explain it. Like this isn't like some Christopher Nolan movie where they just talk to you like, we're gonna jack you into this person. We got to be careful about blending line like. No, it just lets the things happen and lets you feel your way around. And I really appreciated that about it.
I just know that I'm still processing it. So right now I am like actively hugging myself under these blankets.
No, it's so it's about this woman who she's the topic of the film, Possessor.
Yeah.
And she's the one who's basically they get contracts. Not a huge amount is said about whoever this team or association or whatever they are.
It's implied it's like pretty like for obvious reasons pretty hush hush.
Yeah, no, it's definitely top secret. This is like one of those sci-fi movies where the sci-fi is very like under veils. Like it's not blatant sci-fi where there's laser guns and like flagrant cyberpunk things, but it's very much, it feels very cyberpunk in the sense that it's gritty. It feels like a near future thing, but the kind of tech they're talking about is, they kidnap somebody that would have access to their target at some point, and then they just implant something into their skull that allows this person to remotely jack into that other person and basically have control of them for a couple of days, at which point they'll try to basically
assassinate somebody.
Yeah, and also have like a little bit of time to lead up to it to make it seem like this person just went nuts and, shot this guy. So it's an interesting premise, but the thing that makes it a movie is that this lady is clearly unstable.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
And that's kind of the theme of the film. She's hiding it.
Yeah, one thing I did like about this movie, or at least I thought was very effective, I feel like is a very strong word.
I love this. This is my jam.
I will think about this later when I am not sleep deprived, and I'll think that was an amazing movie. Yeah. And I know consciously and objectively I will feel that way. Yeah. I do not feel that way right now.
You're just like huddled in a corner, hugging yourself, shaking.
I am hugging myself, shaking, thinking my dreams are gonna be fucked up tonight. And God damn it.
That'll be fine.
That's my brain's going right now.
You'll be fine.
But anyway, the one thing I liked about this is the sense of unknown that kind of carries a pretty heavy weight.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't tell you much. Like, even the basic premise, you kind of have to piece together as it goes along.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you're never quite sure who's in control and who is not at any given moment, unless it's explicitly told you through visuals. You're not sure where her mind is at any given point, except when it's told to you through visuals.
I will say it was clearer the second time around.
I feel like I pieced together most of it pretty well.
Yeah, but the thing is, the first time around, you're kind of like feeling your way through the concept.
I can see that.
And seeing it again this time, it was much clearer to me when she was in control versus, what happens later.
But even like the rules of the world and how the sci-fi universe runs is it's like a big unknown through that. And as such, you're never quite sure what to expect from it.
Yeah.
And that kind of puts you in this mindset of like deliberate confusion and doubt at any given moment, while also delivering very, very gruesome, very disturbing, violent imagery.
God. The violence in this movie is so graphic and brutal. It's
like, I've seen some shit doing this show for 8-9 years, and there are some parts I couldn't fucking watch.
It gets pretty intense. It's not, a gore fest all the way through, but
it's gory in the ways that feels just a little too real, and something you don't quite see all that much of, to the point where you feel it, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, that last scene, man. That last scene.
It was not even the last scene that did it for me.
Hits.
It was the middle one, without giving away spoilers. That one fucked me up.
Yeah, that one was really intense. But that's the thing about this movie. It's like it knows when to practice a certain amount of restraint and just let the actors act and not go too crazy with the visuals or the sci-fi. It's in your face when it needs to be, and it doesn't like just get super excessive with that by just putting it everywhere. It's not that kind of movie. It's also it's well paced.
It is.
Yeah. It's kind of slow at the same time. It doesn't exactly waste any time.
No. I would say, like, I was kind of wondering, there's parts like, is this gonna be in the movie? Because I feel like it would like kind of end there, but they found a good balance between keeping the action moving, keeping the character development where it needed to be, and building to a logical conclusion. In a way that if this is like a directorial debut, it is very impressively crafted.
Yeah. No, the level of confidence on display here on all fronts, aside from the fantastic acting all the way through, there's also just the fact that the cinematography is very, very tight, and down to the editing, down to the different visual effects that he chooses to use to convey different moods and feelings. But just like it's such a confident movie.
I am going to add one little cautionary note for anyone watching this. If you're epileptic, you probably should not be watching this.
There are a couple moments with some flashing lights.
Yeah, like that's not a joke. If you're epileptic, don't watch this movie because I'm not, and I was having a hard time in some sequences.
Yeah. But there's one sequence that really stood out to me because I'd seen things where it's like, all right, you're jacking in from one reality to another kind of deal. And
was it like the different skin thing?
Yeah, no, they did this cool thing where they basically built, like, it looked like a wax model of the actors, but it's such a realistic model that you don't realize it's wax until it starts melting. And they do this kind of, it's like they hung the wax upside down so that it drips, but then the camera's also at the same perspective, so it looks like it conveys this thing where this person is disintegrating and going upwards, and it's just a super cool effect.
I think the one element that stuck out to me the most was the continuing sense of like pervasive, violation. That's what we frequently explores.
Yeah.
Because like this is like there is a definite like sexuality to this film, but not like in a way that's meant to be sexy.
Yeah. No, this movie is perverse in some very interesting ways, which falls in line with the Cronenberg legacy, but at the same time, it does really interesting things.
It does. That's what I mean. Like it plays with the idea of violation. Like fact, like there are sex scenes with but again, without going to Twitch's spoilers.
Well, let's. Do you want to just like
I'm gonna talk in like in the vaguest terms I possibly can.
Yeah, but do you want to have like a spoiler territory section so we can really talk about this?
Sure. Like I think we can get in that like in a minute or two.
Yeah. Okay.
But like this is the last point I want to make before we get into that is the fact that it like while these scenes are happening, like they'll occasionally swap back, like visually swap back to like, okay, she's in control or he's in control or vice versa, and it plays with that idea of she's stealing this person's life.
Yeah.
In every vulnerable way.
Yeah.
And the way it does it does it without saying a word.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel gross, you feel ugly.
Yeah, it's an unpleasant movie. But
if you can't tell the fact that I'm like literally hiding under a blanket, I'm sad.
No, it's a super dark movie. But it does it so well. If you're into like just there are movies where they like they go for the bleakness, but they kind of just overdo it to the point where it's just
where it doesn't serve the story. It's just there to be bleak.
Yeah, it's just fucked up for the sake of being fucked up, and it just feels gratuitous and gets kind of boring in a weird way
and pretentious.
Yeah, this movie does not have that problem at all.
It does not.
It utilizes the darkness and the fucked up themes really well in service of the story that it's trying to tell, and the story is interesting, even if overall the story is pretty basic and straightforward.
Yeah, the
execution of it and what they convey, like going from point A to point B in the story, is really impressive. It's a really good movie.
There are a lot of complex, like personal feelings you get into, not just from the characters on screen, the ones you feel watching it.
Yeah, the themes.
Because especially if you like ever felt uncomfortable with like boundaries, or just like being watched, or just feel like people are just. If you ever had boundary issues,
paranoia, definitely.
Because again, it feels like you're being constantly invaded by this unwanted, unseen, and unknowable element.
Yeah.
And you're not even sure if it's even there, if you're just going crazy.
Yeah.
And this movie revels in that feeling, and you feel it watching it.
A brilliantly uncomfortable film.
Yes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
No, this is my jam. Like this is part of why I was like, I'm more in the mood to watch this.
And I said, fine.
Yeah. Right. And the funny thing is, he said fine like literally a few seconds before I was about to say fine to Wolfwalker. So
I caved first.
He caved first by like this much, and I was like, haha, we're going to the depths.
And then I basically like, wait, I changed my note too late.
No take backs. But then so I on first watch I felt like this. On second watch I will confirm, like, this is a 9 out of 10 for me. This is a really solid, interesting unique movie. I honestly felt like they don't make these kinds of movies anymore.
They are extremely rare.
Yeah, it's really rare to see a movie like this, especially in sci-fi, where it's so subtle and character focused and also like disturbing and stylistic. It's just really good. And I had a great time. Well, I don't know. Great time.
Great time.
I really appreciated the experience of watching this movie.
That seems like a more appropriate.
Yeah. I don't know about great time.
I had a great time. What a family picture.
What a good... Well, I had so much fun watching all of this misery and darkness, especially at the climax, because oh my god.
Come here, Timmy. Come watch this fun family film. Thank you, Daddy. Love to watch these family movie nights.
Please don't say daddy when you're facing me ever.
We're going back into territory and matters. Hey, Daddy.
Oh, God. This is just going to be fuel for that awful fan fiction stuff.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, well. But, yeah. So, I don't know.
I think that's as much as we can go without going
to
spoilers.
Alright, cool. So, if you don't want to see any spoilers about the movie, which if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you just go and see it without spoilers because... It's
if
a
this
ride.
Is your jam, I should emphasize. I do not think this movie is going to be for everybody.
No, definitely not. But if you're cool with spoilers, let's get into it. So
why don't you've seen this twice? Why don't you start?
Holy shit, man! First off, it's very clear when she's in control and when he's in control.
Yeah.
Because what happens is that the movie opens with her doing another job. And she stabs the dude to death, like, really intensely. Like, a bunch of stabs. When she's got a gun. And they ask her, like, why'd you do it? And she just gives some, like, offhand excuse, like, it just seemed in character.
Yeah.
Which doesn't make sense. She didn't even care about the excuse, but clearly she's not supposed to do that. But she did. So she has an attachment to this violence. She has this addiction to this violence. And she asks for some time off to herself and has apparently lied to her employer about her situation with her husband, ex-husband. And when she goes home, like, she enjoys being there, kind of, but she clearly feels out of place in the real world in, like, a domestic situation.
Yeah, that's what I got from this, was the fact that because their whole narrative through the whole movie is that every time she's finished with that, she's supposed to kill herself in the host body.
And she can't.
And she can't do it. And my interpretation of that was, at that point, she'd rather live any other life but her own.
The idea of going back to her own life was
so intensely aversive that it's like, I'd rather sit here and deal with the consequences of the thing I just did, or lose my mind entirely to this host body, rather than go back to my boring domestic life.
To be anyone but yourself.
With a child that she's clearly resentful towards.
Well, resentful, but she also loves him on a certain level.
You can love something and still resent it.
No, I know. She has a visceral, like, connection to him, though. She does care for him. But in an overall, like, big picture scope, she clearly doesn't want to be part of this. Because just being home for a little while, she calls work and says, I want to come back to work. Like, she cancels her request for time off. And then, like, her husband asks her to move back in and come back home. But she goes back to work and basically tells them, like, I was lying about my husband. And so when they put her in for this next job, like, she starts experiencing this weird overlap where she is not quite, like, she seems disoriented and she's not quite in full control of herself, or she's not entirely present. And it's a weird thing, but she definitely is having this weird bleed through effect where his personality is also kind of still there, because she's supposed to be overriding him completely and he's just kind of dormant in the background, but there's, like, flashes where it goes back and forth, and she lies about it. And it gets to the point where when she finally goes through with the assassination, which is extraordinarily brutal. Like,
that was my nope moment.
Yeah, it was. She has the gun, but she just elects to beat this guy mercilessly with a fireplace poker.
Played by Sean Bean, by the way.
The target, not the poker.
Hot poker. Played by Sean Bean.
Have at you, man.
That was a really funny image of just a hot poker with like Sean Bean's face on the sharp point,
but,
and he's doing like the Boromir scream.
But in all seriousness, Sean B gets the fuck beat out of him.
Oh yeah,
and his face is covered in blood and shit, and like the dude stabs the poker in through his open mouth and like pries his teeth out and shit, and then jabs his eye out, and it's really uncomfortable, and it's meant to be, but it's just this incredibly brutal fucking murder. And it's this level of violence which is, you know, she had the gun. She
chose the poker.
She chose to have that level of violence, and it really viscerally conveys just how unwell this person is.
I think I legitimately felt a little sick after that scene.
Yeah, it's a sickening moment, especially if you're not used to that kind of thing.
And I am. So the fact that it got me, it still got me.
Yeah. So then she chases down the dude's girlfriend, the target's daughter, and like murders her in cold blood. Yeah. And it's not even necessary at that point.
No, but what's even grosser though is she kind of takes a weird, creepy moment before.
Yeah. Takes a creepy moment and strokes her hair, because she does have a couple of days of being, you know, this woman's boyfriend before she commits this murder, and she, you know, connects with her. They have sex, and it's just this really weird out of body thing. And, you know, the girl genuinely loved this guy and really cares about him and is really, like, trying to figure out if he's okay and what's wrong. And it's pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah. That's what I mean, like, the pervasiveness, the violation this movie frequently employs. That's for me, like, especially prevalent in that sex scene. Yeah. Because like halfway through it, they flash back to her, like visually, like her experiencing what he's doing. Yeah. To the point where it's like,
This is fucked up.
Like, yeah.
Also, considering that, I don't think she, you know, I doubt she's intimate with her husband at this point.
I mean, they have like one scene, but like it's clearly disconnect.
Yeah, but exactly. Like she's not present when it comes to her relationship with her husband. Yeah. So inserting herself into a relationship where there is that kind of love and they can have that kind of sex is like, that's all she has. So she's even more into it, but it's really fucking gross.
Well, that's what supports the thesis that it's really just an excuse to get away from her life in any way, shape, or form.
It's deeply invasive,
and you're not rooting for her at any point in this movie.
No,
I'm dear God.
But so she does the murder, but at the very end, when she's supposed to kill herself, she has the hesitation, but basically the bleed through that she's been experiencing, the lack of control, comes in at the wrong moment, and he has this kind of visceral gut reaction, like this instinctual thing, to stab out the implant on top of his head. That is how they connect, and I have to wonder how much of that is him and how much of that is her.
That was definitely up for debate.
Exactly.
Point. Yeah.
So I found that really, really interesting. But then basically he's mostly back in control, and he is devastated, of course. And a couple more murders happen during their back and forth of her, like the association that she's with, trying to get her back in control, and him getting back in control, and a couple more people die that he cares about. And at this point, his whole life is ruined. Pretty much everyone that was really close to him is dead at his hand, but because of her. So he hunts down he goes to find.
Before we get to that, can we talk about the face scene?
Oh God,
because you want to talk about another scene that was all about invasiveness and
the way they visually convey him taking back over is that one of his friends was actually the guy that scouted him to be the host for this assassination. So not only is it a betrayal, but that friend is able to get to him and try to recalibrate her implant or whatever to get her back in control. And while they're doing a test and switching back and forth between him and her, it does this really interesting thing where it switches back and forth between him laying on the bed and her laying on the bed just bathed in red light. And then he walks in during the red light sequence and starts strangling her while he simultaneously starts choking because it's the same. But then he just does this really interesting effect where he goes to crush her head and there's just this like snap.
Yep.
And he's like squishing this rubber mask. It's a really effective visual. I really liked it.
There was a part, I think I almost yelled at, did she just die?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was like, did he just completely obliterate her in his mind? And so he takes this rubber mask and puts it over his face. And this is the way of conveying that he now has access to her memories and stuff. And this is the creepy visual that you'll see in like the cover and the cover images and stuff in the posters.
It doesn't do it justice though, because like it's the creepiest mask I've seen since like the Michael Myers mask.
When you see it like actually there, the fact that it's got like one eye gaping open and it's just like a drooping version of her face, but then it reenacts certain scenes from earlier in the movie where it's been her and like her having sex with her husband, but it's just her creepy, droopy, like, fake face, and, like, her smelling her son's hair, and then, while he's sleeping, and then, like, leaning up into the moonlight, and it's just this fucking creepy face, and it's so good. It's so effectively unnerving. I love it so much.
I think that was another scene where I was like, I need an adult.
But yeah, so he uses this access to her memories that he has to basically track down her husband and son. And man,
damn.
There's the like she basically comes to in his mind while he's there holding her husband at gunpoint and is like, what are you doing here? And basically what comes about is that she doesn't care about her husband anymore. He's holding her back. She feels tied down to him to the point where she's just like, go ahead, do it. And he doesn't really want to, but he's basically put into a situation where he has no choice. And that is a really intense murder.
But here's another thing that's kind of interesting about it. I just kind of thought about this, is it also plays in the fact that she's unwilling to pull the trigger herself.
That's fair too.
You do it. I'm not going to do it. You can kill my husband though for me.
But I have to wonder afterwards when he has the cleaver and he's just fucking hacking away at the guy. Who is that?
I think I interpret that as still him,
because that's her style of killing. He barely has a stomach for this shit.
True, but there is also the bleed effect, so you can argue that at this point she's in her mentality, in her world, so you can pick up those tendencies. I
don't know. I think
it also weakened the barrier enough for her to regain control.
I do think that part of that is just her letting out all of that pent up frustration.
You can also make that argument. It's really kind of up to interpretation.
Yeah, it's a brilliantly vague scene. But then the kid's
less up for debate.
Yeah, the kid comes in and like dude is sitting back in the kitchen just like catching his breath after murdering this guy and realizing what he's done, and all of a sudden he's stabbed in the neck by the son, and the son is like, you got to realize this is like a 10-year-old.
If that.
Yeah. So the dude instinctually raises the gun and shoots the kid in the chest, and the kid just kind of stands there without reacting. And then like the part about the movie that just really hit me with how unambiguously fucked up it was is that it straight up switches back to her in that scenario. Clearly, it is her in control. It is her feelings. And she just pumps him full of like 4 or 5 bullets, including one to the fucking face. And you see the back of this kid's head blow out. It's intense. And then as they're laying on the floor both dying, the kid says what she would always say at the end of a mission, which is, pull me out. And you realize that basically the association realized what this guy was going to do and what was going to happen, and took over her son to make sure that he killed the host. And it's a fucked up twist at the end.
But it actually opens up a lot of other questions, like, was implanted after or before?
No, because as soon as the implant happens, they have to jack in. Otherwise, the person's walking around like knowing they were kidnapped.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
Remember, when they kidnap him, like, it happens immediately.
You're right.
So what I found interesting is that kid basically walks out from, like, where that kid walks out from on the left, those are like garages.
Yeah, so that's probably where it happened.
Exactly. I think it happened like literally right then.
That would make sense.
So the whole final arc of the movie is
it happened by the lake.
By the lake?
He said he holds a map, and he said, I found it yesterday. It's a map to the lake.
Oof. Maybe. I don't know. I have to think about that a bit more. It's oof. Well, I don't think he had that much time. It doesn't really tell you how much time goes by between when he decides he's going to go find her family and when he actually arrives. He does show up and, like, watch them through the window for a bit, but I feel like that's all within the same day. But regardless, like, the overall arc is there. Like, the agency takes over this kid's body and fucking, like... Mm-hmm. And afterwards, she seems relieved.
Yeah.
That her family is dead, and she can finally just focus on being this mind-controlling murderer. It's an incredibly dark ending. And there's, of course, a lot more to it than this. This is just the basic cliff notes. But, oh my god. Oh my god. Like, where it went with that ending really fucked with me. I was not expecting something that intense and dark.
My head hurts.
Oh, man. But I appreciate a good dark movie that, like, this manages to feel like... There's an elegance to this movie without it being pretentious.
I agree. Yeah.
And it does a lot of things that could easily be seen as pretentious without falling into that trap.
Like, I think the fact that it did kind of hit me as viscerally as it did is definitely a what's the word I'm looking for? A mark of great filmmaking. Because everything that I felt through it was completely intentional.
Yeah. It knows what it's trying to convey, and it does it very effectively, and it does it very stylishly. It is definitely a stylish fucking movie. This movie has a specific voice to it. And that's like it basically, the violence is restricted to these 3 scenes. It's restricted to the murder at the opening, which is just a really intense stabbing. But even as a stabbing, it's more intense than a lot of, like, stabbings that you see in movies. By a long shot.
Yeah.
And it kind of sets the tone while also, exceeding that by a long shot with the middle murder sequence.
It puts you in, like, a state of otherworldliness. Like, almost like in a trance for a good chunk of the movie.
Yeah.
That is rudely awoken by a nightmare.
It is a mesmerizing movie.
Yeah. Which
but
is kind of a, like, surprisingly profound thing for me to say when I'm, like, sleep deprived.
Well, the other thing is, like, at the very end of the movie, that final murder sequence, that's also... It's one of those things where it hits on a certain...
I could have, but I didn't.
Yeah. Did you think I wouldn't notice, Michael?
I think I stopped caring there.
In case you couldn't hear it, Michael just farted.
I was like, yeah, it's been a while since we had a good night mommy laugh.
If you don't get that reference, go watch the Goodnight Mommy review.
I didn't realize how much that joke is prevalent in that review until I went back and watched it.
It's so good. It's so funny. Because we just lose our shit laughing about it.
It still makes you cry laughing now.
It's hilarious. But yeah, the thing about the scene where she murders her husband and child is that it's so much more effective than the scene where she stabs a dude with the fucking fireplace poker and pries his teeth out. Because there is an emotional stake to it. There is. God damn. I mean, let's be real. You needed that.
I did. I really did.
Oh. All right. Well.
I think I kind of derailed this a little bit, but it was worth it.
You got anything else you want to say, Michael? Something verbal.
Farts are funny. No, all seriousness though.
I mean, they are. Let's be fair. Farts are really funny.
In all seriousness, no. This is a deeply affecting movie for all the reasons we've listed, and I. At this point, like, I think we get a pretty good idea, even before we got to spoiler territory, whether that's the movie you're going to get something out of.
Yeah.
Or you're just going to be viscerally disgusted by. And you're not wrong either way.
Yeah. No, it's an intense movie, and it's definitely not for everyone. But if you're into this kind of sci-fi, if you enjoyed something like Upgrade, for more than its cool action sequences, then this is that kind of horror. This is that kind of sci-fi.
I'd put this above Upgrade, though.
Oh, 100%. It's definitely a better movie than Upgrade. But it's just a really good movie. Highly recommended. Indie gem. Just be sure you have the stomach for it.
Yeah. So. I got nothing else.
All right.
So, yeah.
All right, cool. Well, like and subscribe.
There's a long list of movies we gotta watch, so stay tuned. I have a lot more stuff coming soon.
All right, everyone. See you.
Bye, guys.